Hi guys, so I had a viewer ask a question that I haven't addressed in quite a while actually, and I thought that for this reason it would be of interest. And this is the question of how an INFJ or an INTJ, or perhaps even like an NI user who's maybe not an NI dominant, but has potentially strong NI like an ENFJ or an ENTJ or an ISTP or an ISFP, how can you work on your NI? How can you refine, harness, hone your NI in order to make it yield the best possible results? In a sense, how to engage with NI in such a way that it is creative as possible. I think that's what we're aiming at. Now, it's a very good question, but it's kind of divided into two questions. So there's one question which is more so about how to make sure that you're giving NI the best chance to thrive, right? NI as a cognitive function that you have, and that is going to yield material that you can then use, right? Or not use, but in some way, maybe even if it's not conscious, you'll be using it. So that's allowing NI to thrive. So that's the first question. The other question, which is related but separate, is the question about how to articulate the insights of NI into a language that can do them justice, right? So how to further refine NI. In fact, this is a work that is not just the work of NI, it's also to a large extent the work of FENTI, but I won't be getting into this now because I think the question was more so about how to provide an existential environment where NI is allowed to thrive. So in a sense, it's like if you're motivated about not being adaptive submissive or about moving beyond adaptive submission, what are some good strategies? So to some extent, this is going to differ according to the person because we're talking about a highly subjective function and it's going to be cultivated in highly subjective ways, meaning that there's going to be a lot of variation from person to person. At the same time, it's undeniable as well that there's going to be some similarities, there's going to be some common themes. So based on my own experience, which will be the primary inspiration, the source material for this video and this response, but also from interacting with other INFJs, my sense is that in order to give NI the best possible sort of backdrop to thrive, well, you need to stimulate it, but you need to stimulate it in a way that does not overwhelm it. So you need to engage with physical reality, you need to engage with social reality, don't need to withdraw too much, because at some level, or I should say at all levels, the data that you're going to gather and that's going to feed the processing of introverted intuition is, is SE, right? Now your SE works kind of without you being the master of it because it's inferior, but it still works. You just have to give the opportunity to SE to be stimulated so that it can then provide information to NI. The overstimulation, in some sense, is actually not really an overstimulation of NI, but an overstimulation of SE. And again, INFJs are very sensitive to overstimulation because of inferior SE. So what I have found very useful personally is going for walks, engaging with the outside world, but particularly walks in nature. Like I'm lucky enough to live in an area where I've tended to favor areas that are peri-urban, so not far from cities, but slightly outside cities where there's lots of greenery, lots of trees and parks. So I have like a set of dedicated walks, routes that I follow, and I often just let myself be, bathed in that atmosphere. And I find that quite a good environment for my NI to thrive in. So I'd say going for walks is good. I listen to music, that helps me as well. I think that when it comes to, again, striking this good middle ground between stimulation and between understimulation and overstimulation, I listen to a lot of ambient music. That's really what works for me, and if there are people who are eager to hear about what kind of ambient artists I would recommend, because, since I'm aware that this works so really, really well for my NI, I've consumed a lot of it. And so I'm familiar with a lot of artists. So if you're curious, it's not just about like, Brian Eno and Grouper and I don't know, a bunch of other ones, although these are great, but there's a lot of other stuff. So that works really well for me. And you can combine that. You can listen to ambient music while you're out, in nature. Sometimes it's better to just listen to the sounds of nature. There are times when you just have to, follow your intuition in a folk sense. Like you follow intuition. Do you really feel like going for a walk and listening to music? Sometimes you prefer that, and then you should do it. Sometimes you prefer not listening to anything, and then you should do that. So yeah, those are good things. Another thing that I do, but might not be for everyone, I find that it works for me, is okay. So one of the things about NI that, and this actually sort of connects with the other question that I'm not officially addressing in this video, but it connects with it, but it's still more connected to the first one, I think, because it's still more about NIs. Okay, so you're trying to get to a particular destination with an NI intuition and an NI insight. At some level, you do need to bring it into speech to bring more clarity to it, bring more boundaries to it. But you're also aware that the speech is going to be strange, it's going to be symbolic, it's going to be metaphorical, and so it might not be possible to have other people be involved as participants in the further refinement of your NI insight. Although past a certain stage of boundary setting and articulation and high resolution, you should then move to that, which is, I also call prescience as vocation in the Ecstatic Soul. If you're familiar with the Ecstatic Soul, my book on the INFJ mind, deep dive into the INFJ mind, you would be familiar with that. The book, by the way, is my first book on the INFJ. It's available at the link below if you want to go deeper into this topic. Now, what I do then is I talk to myself. So when I said it's not for everyone, maybe for some people talking to themselves will be encouraging a certain neurotic predisposition. So I don't know. It does not do that for me. It actually helps me. It's a form of therapy, obviously not as efficient as a real therapy. But I talk to myself, and sometimes I just unspool and kind of disentangle those kind of like low resolution NI intuitions, and that allows me to kind of provide a narrative which I can set at my own pace and without fearing that I'm going to sound crazy, because essentially I'm talking to myself and ramble to myself until some sort of meeting point is reached at which stage things start to get clearer and less word salady, because sometimes it can come across that way. So that's something I do as well. I do sort of engage in self-talking as if, I'm sort of from a third-party perspective, and I'm trying to come to terms, because again, sometimes we just don't have the environments that allow us to express those insights in their raw form, and we need that. So I would say that walking is great, nature is great, ambient music. So these are 3 elements that hopefully can be useful to you, but I'd love to hear, because I'm sure there's going to be people who have other methods, and I'd love to hear more about that in the comments. So let me know. By the way, so the Ecstatic Soul is I've already talked about it, my book on the INFJ mind, but there's a sequel, came out more recently, called the Infinite Soul. And this takes the INFJ mind, it looks at the INFJ mind and INFJ consciousness in the context of the real world, which is why it's called INFJ Alive in the Modern World. And it's about how to find meaning, purpose, and value as an INFJ in a world that we often feel is hostile to us. It's fresh out of the oven. Get it at the link below. It goes very well with the first one, right? They go together, as you can see. And the Infinite Soul needs more reviews as well. So if you love the book, but you haven't dropped a review yet, please consider it. Helps with the referencing. And as I like to say, my channel is still going thanks to my Patreon supporters, thanks to my supporters of all types. Anywhere from $3.50 a month, you can really help me. So the link is below if you would like to support me. Don't forget, you access bonus content. You can suggest new material for me to cover and interact with me and the other members of the community in general. We do some young readings, we do other things, and pretty soon I'm going to start going into deep dives in particular topics from my books specifically for Patreon. So if you're interested in that, you know where to go. Okay, see you soon, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.